Around the Ozarks is now on your FM radio. Listen to Around the Ozarks mornings with Grace Gooley as I spotlight local people, stories, and podcasts, all while playing the country legends of the 90s and the hit makers of the 2000s. It's on the Ozarks' best country, 105.1 The Bull. It's time for Around the Ozarks Sports Scene, brought to you by Colton's Steakhouse, Thompson Sales, and Deadeye Gun and Pawn in Sparta. Here's your host, Scott Purrier.
Welcome into another edition of Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. I am Scott Purrier. As always, a big thank you to you for tuning in this week. We're going to talk some Willard Tigers baseball, as we always find ourselves doing about this time of the year. It means the playoffs are around the corner, and Willard's having another great season. And we welcome in head coach Scotty McGee. Scott, good morning.
Good morning. Glad to be on, and hopefully you can get some of that karma and make it back to a Final Four this year.
Exactly, yeah. And I say annual because it seems like we've caught up with you in late April or May now for a couple of years. And no different this year. The Willard Tigers are off to a 24-6 start, won 24 of their 30 games, ranked number one in the state of Missouri in Class 5. We're taping this on Wednesday. Got a game against Hillcrest today and then Springdale Harbor tomorrow. But this year is a little bit different in that it is Coach McGee's last year at Willard. As he announced a few weeks ago, he'd be retiring at the end of the season from baseball, moving over to Republic in a school administrator role. Has it started sinking in yet with you, Scott, that this is it?
Yes, it has. Some in some ways, some good ways. Riding the bus last night to Joplin. It's raining, it's cold, and I texted my wife and I said, I only have one more of these really long trips left. So that's kind of the good things, but there's also been a whole bunch of like, hey, this is the last time I'm ever going to coach at this field, or this is the last time I'm going to get to coach against that guy. And then just within your program, it's been really hard for me not to start talking to guys about next year, because kind of usually at this time of year, I'm going to freshmen and JV guys and saying, hey, need you to have a really good next 3 months. I think you're going to be our starting second baseman next year, whatever. And I don't want to, my main assistant, Trevor Bowling, has taken over, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. So that part has been really weird also, because I really start looking forward to the next year about this time and trying to put that piece to the puzzle together. So that's been a little bit different as well.
What have you done in the summers, and will that change this summer?
Yes, it will. So I've been coaching Willard summer baseball at various levels, varsity through middle school. I'm kind of getting a clean break. I think it's going to be, Coach Bowling needs the opportunity to get a fresh start and run his own program. I know he's going to do some things similar to me, but he's got to be able to put his own stamp on it. And if I'm hovering around in any capacity this summer, I just don't think that's fair to him.
What is Trevor's history with you? How many years?
So he actually played here. He was on our very first Final Four team in 2012, went and played at C of O and SBU. Upon graduating, he came back here and was a volunteer assistant, then took over the Walnut Grove program and got them to a Final Four. He rejoined us in the fall of 2019, and he's been kind of my main assistant ever since then. And we're really excited about his opportunity to put his stamp on the program. He's as much of this success this past 5 or 6 years as anybody.
And did you have, you've got a great AD out there in Katie Pritchard. Did you have some input into, hey, he's ready, that type of deal?
I mean, I had said that over the course of the year. I didn't know that I was going to be leaving this year. Once that got announced, I didn't want to put anybody in a bad position. If I would have been moving up into administration at this own school, I would have pushed really hard. But when you're leaving for a conference rival, it's tough to say, hey, I'm choosing to leave, but here's what you should be doing. But I thought Katie did a tremendous job. There were people who saying that, she shouldn't even open the job and just give it to him. And that wouldn't have been fair to anybody either. She went through the entire process and he ended up being the best candidate. And I think everyone's really excited about it.
Very good. And how long has this been in the making in your mind that, if there were a good administrative opportunity, and why? What is the benefit for you at this point?
I really want to challenge myself in different ways. I'm not saying I'm bored by coaching high school baseball. It's not that at all. But there are new things I want to accomplish in my life and my own personal development and growth. So there's some of that. I wouldn't say I've always just been, I want this next job. Over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a few different opportunities that have intrigued me, and I just never have truly pulled the trigger. The Republic thing just lined up perfectly with the people that are there, with the direction that school district is going. With my son being a senior, I didn't want to bail on him. I would have bailed on him for the perfect opportunity in the past. It never really came, but this kind of was the perfect opportunity and at this exact same time. And so there's a lot of small factors that are going on, but it's a lot more of a pull to Republic than probably people realize. I think that school district, in some ways, Nixa kind of changed the game a few years ago with just trying to get good at everything. And I think Republic's right now on that same path. And I think Republic's gonna be right there in the thick of the best school district in the state of Missouri.
And how old are you now?
I'm 44 right now.
44. So, mid 40s, 19-year career at Willard. It's produced 6 Final Four trips, state championships in 2021 and 2024. When you head down that administrative path, you kind of are saying goodbye to the coaching world because you start a new climb now, assistant principal to assistant superintendent, and everybody wants the big job there, at the end of the tunnel. But has it sunk in? Will you find ways to coach baseball, you think, that aren't high school baseball related?
I don't think so. I think that, my personality is I've got to be either all in or all out. I can't do something halfway. And I just can't. I think if I was to try to do some sort of a role in baseball, I don't think it would be fulfilling for me or for those around me. Because I think if you bring me on in a small role, I'll want to expand it, or I won't do a very good job in the small role. I really am excited to kind of go all in on this new endeavor. And then also some of it is just giving opportunities to some other guys. You know how it is there's not a whole lot of young coaches out there.
Yeah.
Trevor Bowling is a great young coach, and I want him to be able to develop his career. And obviously, people are always going to compare it in your own school, but I don't want him to be in my shadow at all. So, me going on to this new endeavor and being around some great people at Republic, man, just a bunch of driven people that really want what's best for people around them, and so I'm excited to be part of that.
Well, take us back to how this all started at Willard. I know you spent some time at Ozark, went to Missouri State, correct, for
Yes.
school?
Yes.
And played high school ball at
Ozark also.
At Ozark, that's right. I know you coached at Ozark, and so you played for Mike Essick there. In what years were those?
Yeah, 97 through 2000. I played for Phil Montgomery and Mike Essick, and I'm in football and baseball, and man, just learned so much about leadership and two people who just were so good at telling people directly. We even today, you just kind of live in a world where people don't want to be honest. You always know what Phil Montgomery's thinking. You always know what Mike Essick is thinking. And while I'm not their personality types, I have tried to take their directness. Phil Montgomery called me in one time for a meeting, my sophomore fall of football, and I did not like what he told me. But if he wouldn't have told me what he did, I would not have developed into a varsity wide receiver. It was tough in the moment to hear what he said, but I think there's a lot of lessons in that. And then Mike Essick is just one of the best humans you'll ever meet, and so I was able to learn a lot from them, and then went back and coached underneath Mike.
Just the engagement between Essick and Montgomery would have been worth taping and bottling up, and you got a front row seat to it as a player and then as a coach too. I mean, that's legendary stuff because they are probably 1 and 1A, and I won't say who's won in terms of throwing barbs at each other and coming out on top. But Phil would like to think I would say he's 1 and Essick could be 1A, but you probably know a little better rankings than I do on that.
I think Phil is so smart. He can make cutting comments that really hit you about a day or two later. And Essick is so funny that he gets you right away. So it's some good things. But yeah, so I coached for Mike for 4 years, 2004 through 2007. I also coached under Yancey Little, learned a tremendous amount from him. Was able to win 3 state titles as an assistant. Replaced John Hartley out here. John did a tremendous job over his 21-year career at Willard, and kind of took this over, and they just expected it to be easy, and it was anything but that. I made a bunch of mistakes early on, and just trying to find my own way of coaching was a real struggle for me. I tried to be a little Mike Essick, and I did a terrible job of replicating that. And once I kind of figured out who I was as a coach around 2011, and then really embraced in 2016, just being a super positive, encouraging voice during game days for our players, has really kind of elevated probably my coaching ability over the last decade.
What was that little Mike Essick part that you couldn't replicate, or explain that a little bit more?
Probably trying to just call people out in front of everyone but I didn't have his sense of humor or his personality to where you weren't always offended by it. When
Yeah.
I did it, it came across as mean spirited, and with Mike, it didn't. And so I kind of developed a way where the guys kind of hated what I was telling them at times, and I was saying it at inappropriate times as well, like in the middle of games and stuff like that. So trying to work on that, and then I got into 2016 time period and realized I'm generally a pretty positive person. So why am I being so negative at practices and games? I can have negative conversations away from the field, but when we're out there competing, we're all pulling in the same direction, and we all want each other to succeed. And me telling you that you're terrible at hitting curveballs in that moment doesn't do a whole lot of good for anybody.
Yeah. And part of that's just growing up, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
as you became a young adult and, a family man and everything else, that maturity was probably kicking in as well, too, wasn't it?
It was, and then also probably learning from my players that man, they're working freaking hard at this. When you're not good, or you see someone not succeeding, our first go to I think as people is thinking, oh, that guy's just not putting in the effort. But you're seeing people put in effort and they're not getting the results they want, and then you're berating them about their results when they're working at it. Why don't you get in their corner and try to help them a little bit? And so I really kind of embraced that over the last decade. I still will get into it with people. I'm sure some of my former players will tell you some stories, but I do think that has really helped me in the last 10 years.
If you took your six Final Four teams, including your two state champions, and played a round robin tournament, in your mind, which team comes out on top?
Probably the 2019 team, just due to the offense and the pitching depth that group had. Dalen Stewart and Cameron Jennings led us to state titles on the mound. Neither one of those teams was great on offense. The 2019 team had four good arms, not probably well, not as good as Dalen or Cameron was, but just the depth of the lineup was so good that team is probably the most talented team. What's interesting is you look at I think since 2021 we have been at about the same level each one of these years. And we've had years where we won the state title. We've had years where we lost in districts. Baseball's a funny game like that. As an Arkansas fan, like sometimes you have some inexplicable losses, and this may be the year that Arkansas breaks through. If Arkansas wins the national title this year, this will not be ranked as one of their top teams. And that's what's so great about this sport. And so I would say the 2019 team would probably be at the top. Probably the 2012 or 13 teams would be at the bottom. We got to that level just because we were playing a weird brand of baseball, doing some weird things like stealing home and rotating 4 second basemen, and our pitchers changed deliveries. We're trying to do anything we could just to compete with the big dogs, and we kind of got up there. And 2013, we faced Matt Vierling and Jake Berger and Justin Paulson, and like they probably had the 10 best players on the field at CBC, but we were just excited to be there at that point.
How much has baseball changed in the 20 years, almost 20 years you've coached high school in the area? What's better? What's different? We talk a lot on the radio show about pitching problems, Missouri State goes through it.
Mm-hmm.
Their team ERAs in the sixes. And we talked to Scott Nasby at Drury, and their team ERAs in the 6 to 7 range. Why in our area is pitching so hard to acquire? And I guess the second part of that is that Keith Gutton will tell you that it's not just here, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that in order to get recruited, you have to hit certain velocity numbers. And if you don't get there, you won't get recruited. So as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, your entire focus is, how do I get to that number? Mm-hmm. Then you get to that number. Let's say the number, if you want to pitch at Missouri State, you've probably got to touch 92. In an indoor bullpen or whatever. Well, maybe you can now touch 92, but you're nowhere close to being ready to pitch there. But the recruiting of pitching is difficult because you don't get to watch guys throw in games 10 to 15 times. Yeah. You kind of have to take a 10-pitch video and hope for the best, and that's probably not the most efficient way of doing things. But unfortunately, that pitcher who's working on all of their pitches and is stuck at 85 isn't getting looked at, honestly, by even Drury at this point. And so that part has been really tough, and I think that's across the country. That's not you're right. That's not a Missouri State or Drury thing. We have this real rush to get to velocity by any means necessary, and it doesn't result in people being able to pitch. And we
Yeah.
need to get back to a blend because I love velocity. I want guys to throw hard, but there's a pitchability component that is missing as we see that. I also think on that same note, when you talk about baseball is way better over the last 20 years in skill level. I don't know that our physicality is as good. As more kids go to playing just baseball, they're starting to neglect the weight room.
Yeah.
You got to be strong to be a good player. I mean, look at Aaron Judge, look at Shohei Ohtani. You better be strong if you want to be good. And I do think that we have seen a little bit of a neglect in the weight room with our single sport athletes over the last 5 years.
I wonder too if it has anything to do with the hitters being a little more advanced now because of the proliferation of indoor facilities. And,
Yes.
everybody's got a cage somewhere they can hit year round, air conditioning during the summer, all winter they can go hit. But pitching, you can only still throw so much and without risking injury to your arm. There's only so much you can do. Do you think that has a factor in it too?
100% it does. The ability to hit every day all winter and summer has made a huge difference. I've got a son. We were adding it up the other day. There's been one day. It was April 18th is the only day since March 2nd he's not hit. So he's hit basically 70 of the last 71 days. So hitting has really started to develop. I will also say I do think in the Midwest, hitting instruction is probably ahead of pitching instruction. There's a lot of hitting instructors out there. There's not a ton of pitching instructors that are teaching ways to develop arms and pitchability at those ages 10 through 18 that I think is also probably making an impact.
What do pitchers have to do differently now in 2026 that they could get away with maybe 10 years ago? Because technology, the bats keep getting better, and
Yeah.
all that gets better, but there's not much you can do to change anything they do pitching wise. I mean, they're still going to throw with the same motion and things like that. What is different about pitchability now than it was?
Um, People are not developing an ability for the ball to break towards the first base side. Righties' ability to throw cutters and sliders that just move a little bit that are in the zone has not been very good. People are going for how can I make the ball move the absolute most, but it's not in the zone, so hitters just lay off of it. The next wave is going to be the guys that can make the ball move 4 inches in either direction to get off the barrel, but still be in the strike zone. There's a prevalence of pitchers in the state of Missouri, not just Southwest Missouri, that throw the ball 88, but the pitches are either right down the middle or nowhere close to the zone, and they're just too easy to hit. And if we can get that guy to throw 88 and make the ball move just a little bit side to side, all of a sudden you're going to be a legit pitcher. And that needs to be what people start to focus on. And I do think there's been some conversations amongst some coaches in the area that are leading to identifying that, but now it's getting families and kids to implement some of that stuff. And I think if you ask Nasby or Joey Hawkins, they would love somebody right now that threw 88 and made the ball move, but was in the zone all the time.
Yeah.
But there's not those guys out there because guys have not developed that type of a skill right now. They would much rather throw 91 and be wild from recruiting purposes.
And if they are out there, are either the power fours gobbling them up with NIL money, or the pros are drafting them, paying them?
Absolutely. I will say this is also where if you look, so you look at some of these pitching pros we're talking about, there are some UCM, Missouri Southern, Pitt State. They are getting some of these guys that we're talking about and really developing them. And I think that the good thing about the portal now is if you go somewhere like that, you succeed, you can go wherever you want to at this point. There's some negatives to the portal, but from a baseball standpoint, there's some real positives to the portal. My son's not good enough to play in the SEC, but if he wanted to play in the SEC 10 years ago, he'd just have to go to a bunch of camps. Now get good enough at whatever college you go to and enter the portal and go play in the SEC. And I said, that does not apply to my son. I don't want anyone thinking I'm advocating that, but I'm saying like it used to be way different in recruiting, and now it's you just go somewhere and you succeed. That's what matters most. And I like that from the portal standpoint of it.
So in summary, pitchers basically should go back and pick up a wiffle ball like we played with,
Yes.
make it break 6 inches each way and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And doing everything. We're having guys that are throwing their best strikeout pitches on 0-0. We got to get back to getting to 2 strikes before we worry about who's swinging and missing.
Sure.
There's just a little too much of that. You follow Nixa baseball. That's what I appreciated about Jackson Gamble. He really kind of figured that out his senior year, and then he made all conference in the MIAA this year as a freshman. He kind of figured that out in the last 2 years and really developed as a pitcher.
Special players in that 19 years, who are some that really stick out in your mind just for their makeup and Willard is always one of those programs that I think will go down kind of like I've made this comparison before, but kind of like the Webb City football, that they're not going to churn out all these D1 guys year in, year out, but they're going to have guys that develop and gritty and competitors, and they find a way. Who are some of those guys that really were the model of your era of coaching at Willard that fit that bill?
The first one was Bobby Hampton, graduated in 2011. Just a grinder of a kid, highly intelligent, worked on his hitting every day. He kind of brought some other guys along with him and brought them into being real players. Then Anthony Canapeel, who graduated in 2012 and was the pitcher of the year at Northwest Missouri State. He was a guy that took pitching super seriously. So those guys in 2011 and 2012 kind of started a trend of, hey, if you want to get really good, you can be there and do that sort of thing. And then you fast forward to, I said 2019 with Garrett Rice, was kind of our first big time player around here, went to Mizzou as a freshman. The last 5 or 6 years, we have had so many kids that are below the Division I talent level, but they play baseball as well as any Division I players in the area. I mean, I'm not saying that they've been missed in recruiting because usually it's a size issue or a velocity issue. But we've had a bunch of guys. Dalen Stewart, who did end up going Division I and pitched at Missouri State as a senior. He was our guy in 2021. We've had guys like Cooper Wilkin, Clayton Kaiser. On our 24 state title team, Cameron Jennings, who's now the ace at C of O, and Hayden Larson kind of led us there. And just those kinds of guys that have just all been great high school baseball players and brought people around with them because they were doing everything the right way and people wanted to be like them.
How important is setting the tone at the youth level, and what did you do to do that when you got to Willard, and how successful has that been? I mean, do you see kids playing the Willard way when they're fourth, fifth, sixth grade on up, or even younger?
Yeah. When I first got here, I thought, oh, we'll just have a bunch of good players every year. And I quickly realized that wasn't the case. And it was going to be a long rebuilding, not from a varsity standpoint, but just from a program standpoint. So we started our youth baseball program, it would have been about 13 years ago. And just we go all the way down to T-ball. And they play Willard youth baseball. We implement some of that stuff slowly, but by sixth grade, our guys kind of know exactly how we play. They know our pickoffs, they know our base running, all of that kind of stuff. That just gives us a real depth of talent. It also connects a lot of our youth players with our current high school players, and they really look up to those guys. And our high school guys feel like they're playing for someone else as well. And I think that's been the biggest thing is that when you're a junior, like we have a game this afternoon, we'll have a bunch of youth kids out there watching. And if you're a junior, you know that there's kids in the stands watching how you go about things. And that puts a little more pressure on you to do things the right way because their family is noticing everything you're doing as well. And so we've not been as successful as Webb City football, but I've tried to model as much of the stuff we do off of people like Webb City football. I always tell baseball coaches, if you want to be good, you need to study football programs. Yeah. Real football programs ran by real head coaches are the most organized, efficient things you can see. And we need to learn as much as we can from them if we want to be successful in our sport.
I can't help but remember when John Perry got here at Nixa, the first trip he made was to Webb City to visit with John Roderick.
Yeah.
And, learn about the COC. And now looking back, Webb City should have just locked the door, not let him in.
Yeah. But I will say from, John as well, Roderick wouldn't do that to anyone. Here, us and Webb had a pretty good rivalry in baseball there for a little while. And literally every time we went down to Webb, I'd pick Roderick's brain for 20 minutes about various program building ideas and what he thought about practices and just a variety of things, differences in football and baseball. And he was always so open with me, even though we'd be playing each other in the district championship in 3 weeks, he would just give me anything that I asked. And that's what makes him so good because the simple fact of it is what John Perry and John Roderick and those guys do, it isn't anything special. It is that they are willing to do everything that it takes to be special. They haven't uncovered some magic formula. They're just really good at implementing what it takes. And there's a lot of people who aren't willing to do what that takes.
Absolutely.
And so they've done a great job with that.
Yeah, and this team 24-6 now. You guys are obviously doing what it takes. I'm sure if I went back and looked at the 6 losses, it's probably some traditional powers, Class 6, people like that, because your approach every year is play the best to get ready for postseason. What do you like about this team? And kind of take us through this season, some of the ups and downs and highlights, and who are the guys that are getting it done for you?
Yeah, what I really like about this team is our grittiness. We are kind of back to just every game we play, we feel like we're going to find a way to win the game by 1 or 2 runs. This has such a feeling like our 2024 team. Our 2024 team was better at pitching than we are, and this group's better at offense. But just every time you took the field that year, it was, hey, we're going to win 2-1, or we're going to win 10-9, but we're going to win. And that grittiness is part of this group. We have 4 great players. Our shortstop, Cade Hyder, who's actually hurt right now, he'll be back this next Tuesday. But he hits leadoff for us. Jackson Red, who's a junior, he's hitting over 400 with 8 home runs, playing left field. He's our number 3 pitcher. Jarrett McGee, who's our starting catcher and hits in the 3 hole. And then Levi Hilton, who's our cleanup hitter and number 1 pitcher. Those 4 are as good as anybody in Southwest Missouri, and they're playing great baseball. And then from there, we're just mixing and matching and playing some matchups and moving guys around defensively. Our bullpen has been outstanding, led by Jack Anderson, who kind of came out of nowhere. He threw 10 innings on the JV as a junior, and now he's thrown 25 innings at the varsity level, signed with C of O, just kind of popped up out of nowhere the last 10 weeks. And you love stories like that. Every year we got a couple of seniors that just weren't expected to be all that great, and then they are great. And that's kind of what I really appreciate about our guys is that they never give up on trying to be that guy at some point in their career. And guys like Jack have done that.
Where are some of these guys going? Have you got some guys going on to play?
We do. We have seven guys going on to play. Cade Hyder's going to play at Fort Scott. Jarrett McGee and Levi Hilton are both going to Missouri Southern. Well, they'll be roommates. We'll see if they get into any arguments about who cleans the dorm. And then we've got Hunter Kelly's going to Culver Stockton. Jack Anderson to C of O. Sean Slagle and Mason Becker both going to Mission University. So just a lot of guys, that are there kind of. We have just cleaned up on guys that play D2 and NAIA baseball and go there and have a lot of success. Because you got to love baseball and love the grind if you're going to play at those levels. You're not getting NIL money.
I'm going back and looking at your game by game, and I am correct. Rogersville, which basically I think they've lost twice, and one of those was without their full complement of players because they were still playing basketball. Final Four.
Yes.
Owasso, Oklahoma, a 1-run loss at Nixa. Columbia Rockbridge loss, Staley, and then Webb City in a tough one there, 5-3. They're 22-4. So,
yeah,
you guys feel like you're battle tested and seasoned, ready to go into this stretch run?
Absolutely. The last 2 weeks we have had, starting with the Fort Zumwalt West game, which we won in extras, and then we had a CJ win in extras. Joplin last night we played in the rain, and it was just talking about the grittiness and finding a way and not making any excuses. I really feel like that's where we're battle tested. Last year we were battle tested by our schedule, but we either dominated people or we got beat. This year we're battle tested by our schedule, and we've been in every game. Those losses you read, they were all 1 and 2 run type games. And that is battle tested. We've pulled out a bunch of 1 and 2 run games as well. So I'm just super excited about that aspect of this group.
Where and when is your district, and have the seedings happened yet or not?
No. So our district is 2 weeks from this week. It's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We are hosting, which is good. So there are 4 teams in Class 5 that have 20 or more wins, and 3 of them are in our district. It's us, Webb, and CJ. And we're going to be the 1, 2, and 3 in some order. We've all beaten each other. So it's going to be a heck of a district seed meeting. If I didn't like those other 2 coaches so well, we could probably come to some pretty verbal arguments, but we talk quite a bit, and I really respect both Coach Schafitzel and Coach Doning. So I think it's going to be an interesting seed meeting. West Plains is actually the 4 seed. They may have as good a pitcher as anybody in Southwest Missouri, and Landon Montgomery, who's going to Crowder. So the top 4 are all going to be pretty tough. And then we'll kind of see. Maybe it'd be kind of cool if CJ played Hillcrest in round 1. I don't know if the seeds would break out that way, but Schafitzel versus Schafitzel, and Schafitzel's last year would be kind of cool.
Yeah, dad and son, correct?
Yeah,
there.
and yes, and talk about just as good a people as you could ever find. Ryan, I'm glad that he's getting some kudos here the last couple of weeks because Ryan Schafitzel has done so much for Southwest Missouri baseball, and really shown how to run a great program when they're really good, and then how to not give up on kids when the talent level has not been as good.
Shameless plug. He's on with us tomorrow morning at 8. So I guess next year you two can sit at the top of the bleachers and go undefeated, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I am looking forward to going and watch some other high school baseball games where I'm not scouting, and I
Yeah.
just get to appreciate some players. Like I don't know if you've seen Brady Yates at Glendale,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to watching him hit as a senior without trying to figure out how to get him out. That kind of stuff is going to be fun for me.
Well, I guess if you had to write a storybook finish, it'd be you and your son Jared playing in a state championship game just down the road in Ozark this year. And is that's not out of the realm of possibility, is it?
It is not out of the realm of possibilities. I think we're one of 4 or 5 teams with a legitimate chance to win it all. If this was basketball or football, I'd say we've got a 50% chance, because I think we're that good. But you know how baseball is. You're probably going to lose or win a big game by 1 run, and a lot of things go into 1 run games. And so we've just got to find a way to where we can try to be as on point as possible in our biggest games so that we win those games 4-3 and don't lose them 4-3. And I really feel like we're trending in the right direction.
We asked you this on our starting lineup show a few weeks ago. Have you purchased any orange yet? Because your wardrobe will change as you move over to Republic.
No, I think I've got 28 shirts I've got to get rid of, from Willard here, but I've not purchased any orange yet. I did get gifted a shirt the other day. I've yet to open or put it on. I'm going to wait till our season's over before I worry about any of that. It has been weird. I was talking to a Republic person the other day, and I used the word "we" talking about Willard, and realizing like, well, actually, I'm about to be at Republic. It's going to be a weird transition, but right now, I think that I have done, and my wife and my son, we've done a great job of just being where we are and enjoying each day, because life's going to look a lot different a month from now for all of us. And I'm really excited about what's going on each day of my life right now, and then also being pretty optimistic about what things will be like next year.
Well, I know I was told that John Hartley spoke on your behalf at the leadoff
Yeah.
club this week and had some very touching words there. I know that's a guy that's meant a lot to you. Any thoughts on following him and what he's meant to your development, just like Mike Essick?
Yeah, John Hartley, a different type of coach than Mike Essick, but really, what he did was from the offensive side is he taught me a new way to play baseball, through his coaching. Then on top of that, just how maybe empowering he was of kids and their development away from him, which was something that I really learned a lot from. John went on and he's been very successful in a variety of different businesses. He's always someone I can reach out to. I also have always appreciated how connected he is to the old days of Willard baseball. And so we started this Willard Legends Club. I had an assistant pass away in 2018 named Justin Atchison, and I wanted multiple ways to recognize him. And so one of those ways was to start the Willard Legends Club. And so he and I collaborate on that now on who we put in each year. And he's always just given me such good historical perspective on that stuff. He's a family man with 2 kids and a wife of I don't know how many years, but it's been a long, long time. And so I've just learned all those kinds of things from him. And I was glad that he was able to speak on my behalf. He was the second coach in Willard baseball history. I'm the third. Bowling will be the fourth. I think we've had baseball for 63 years, 64 years. So 3 coaches in 64 years is pretty impressive. And I'm hoping Trevor can go about 20 now on his own.
There you go. Well, Scotty, best of luck to you. We'll be following, and hopefully we'll be talking second week of June after a state championship. Okay.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Scott McGee, head coach of the Willard Tigers, again retiring after a tremendous run of 19 seasons, 2 state championships, 6 Final Four appearances. Willard baseball has always done it the right way, from John Hartley on to what Scotty's doing as well there. So big thank you to our sponsors. This program's not possible without them. Of course, that starts with Thompson Sales. They're located at 1555 East Independence in South Springfield. Thompson Sales have been in business since 1919. They're your home for the largest selection of Cadillac, Buick, and GMC cars and trucks, new and used. And they got a great service department to take care of your vehicles from start to finish. They be patient with them right now because of the hailstorm that hit, just like every other place in Springfield. Their body shop is getting inundated with calls and requests for loaner cars and get cars fixed and all that. And if your car was totaled, no better place to go find that new or used replacement there than Thompson Sales, where the Thompson boys are always dealing. Also, big thanks to Colton Steakhouse of Springfield, my buddy Thomas Orr. They're located at 2020 East Independence, just down the street from Thompson's, and you'll have a great meal there, whether it's lunch or dinner. You can have barbecue, burgers, of course, steaks, with a place that's got steakhouse in its name. Wonderful hot rolls with that melted honey butter, fresh peanuts. Go give them a try at Colton Steakhouse, and go tell Thomas and the folks we said hello. And then finally, Deadeye Gun in Sparta. Our friend Jonathan, who recently had a birthday. Happy birthday, Jonathan. His Deadeye Gun store is at 7483 Main Street in Sparta, right there on the main drag in town. You can also visit deadeyegunsupply.com to check out their huge selection of guns, pistols, rifles, ammunition, accessories. They've got it all at Deadeye Gun in Sparta. It's going to do it for this week's edition. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Around the Ozarks Sports Scene. We'll see you next week.